Well, hello once again, everybody. Welcome to another edition of After Further Review with Mark Ferrer and John Pelkey. Jeff Taylor out and about. I think he's with family today.
I believe so.
It'll just be you and I on a day. I don't know what it is, Mark. I can't put my finger on it. I can't find any reason for it. But my goodness, does it feel like a spring day today? Doesn't it? Doesn't it feel like spring? I feel like a positive spring.
New life.
Man, I don't know. It's like, I don't know. Pick a number out of the air. 4 hellish years of hibernation, and we're stepping out into the sunlight now. So not sure why that is. Maybe it's because the Cleveland Browns are in the playoffs and doing everything they can to COVID themselves out of the playoffs, apparently. Yeah. So a lot to talk about.
Tough.
Obviously,
that's very, very tough for them.
Yeah, obviously, I'm talking about the election last night, which went Mark and my way, and Jeff's not here, so we can gloat. We can. Bunch of stuff to talk about, and I sent it out to you to kind of a nebulous menu because there are a lot of things I want to talk about. But I think the first thing we need to do is talk about the Heisman Trophy. Going into this, I think we all assumed, well, at least I did, that it would probably the Alabama guys, Mac Jones and Devontae Smith would split the vote. Kyle Trask, because he made the mistake of having his least productive games at the end of a season. They'll play relatively well, particularly the second half of that Alabama SEC championship game. And that it probably Trevor Lawrence was going to end up with the award. Didn't happen that way. I think the most deserving winner got it, Mark, because I think Devontae is the most difficult to defend offensive weapon in college football that's not a quarterback. And I think the issue with the quarterbacks is that I think a lot of people, I think Mac Jones, obviously, because it was another Alabama receiver, didn't get votes that he would have otherwise gotten. Trevor Lawrence did look a little less Trevor Lawrence-like in the playoff game, clearly. And again, we mentioned Kyle Trask, but I really do think that that they got it right this time. That it's just not, because everyone says that award is the best quarterback or running back on a team that could win a championship. I'm glad somebody else, the first non-quarterback or running back since Charles Woodson, Mark, who is a Hall of Fame finalist for the NFL.
Yeah,
on the
that was 1997. That was 23 years, and it's almost 30 years since another wide receiver got it, which was Desmond Howard.
Yeah.
Even though he was obviously a multi-faceted player and really sort of won it, I think, because of his ability to run kicks back and punts back.
Special teams player, no doubt about that.
But and so it's been a long, long time. 2 times in the 90s did a non-quarterback win, and that's the last time we've had that happen.
I think it's great.
Interesting. I do too. I love it, and he's a 4-year guy. That's the other thing. He's a 4-year guy. I know that's not supposed to matter, but the body of work that he's had with Alabama over those 4 years, and the fact that he hung around, and it's a testament and an argument for further development at a lower level. So you keep someone in the minors an extra 4 or 5 months, you know what I mean, or half a season more, or a full season, and it makes a difference. And look at what kind of year he's had. It's been an unbelievable year, and he's lapped the field, to your point.
Yeah, I just think I again, and you go back to Woodson, who was a corner, a defensive back, but also I played on offense. Special teams were a big part of why Charles Woodson, who had a Desmond Howard-like run back for a touchdown as well, a big reason he got it. It's nice as a former terrible high school wide receiver to see just a true wide receiver win it. But I was surprised. Were you surprised as I was? I really expected it to be Trevor Lawrence.
I actually didn't think Lawrence was going to win, except if it was going to be via a split vote. And we thought that was a possibility. But I thought Mac Jones, because of the way he finished the season, because his statistics were just outrageous as well, and he almost seemed to just do it effortlessly. Obviously has this wonderful team around him, right. But I thought he would sneak it out, and either he or Trevor Lawrence, absolutely.
Yeah.
Devonta Smith, though, was invited for a reason, and he's won for a reason, and it's a great story. I agree.
Yeah. Do you think? I always wonder about this because one of the, and we talk about it all the time, and it comes down in progressive trivia. And folks, you can tell it's not Mark's show today; it's mine because there's no progressive trivia. Heisman Trophy winners that have a great deal of success in the NFL, and more often than not, Heisman Trophy winners don't turn out to be great pros. Not all, some do. Obviously, we just talked about Charles Woodson, who won. But a lot of times they don't. And I wonder if in some ways Mac Jones, and this could be subconsciously, people didn't vote for him because, to your point, those Alabama quarterbacks who look amazing have not been amazing on the professional level. Generally career backups. They don't really, and they are in many ways, I think people consider them system quarterbacks, and not, I mean, system in and of the actual offensive system that Alabama runs, but in and of the fact that it is so populated with NFL caliber players that they appear to be better than they actually are. And I wonder if he people didn't vote for him because they felt his success on the next level wouldn't be there. And I wonder if Heisman voters, sometimes that creeps into it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that shouldn't make any difference at all as to what kind of a pro you're going to be. But I think it is fair to factor in the idea that you and I could step into the backfield of Alabama,
win five,
and complete 4 or 5 passes in a game.
We could probably win 5 games. We could probably, you or I, at quarterback for Alabama, probably get a 5-game winning streak.
Yes, exactly. So that's I think they do factor that in. And I think it is changing a little bit. It goes in cycles, Johnny, with Heisman Trophy winners having successful careers. I mean, back in the 80s or so, you've got Sims, you've got Sanders, Barry Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
You've got, you mentioned Charles Woodson. Kyler Murray, I think is out there. Baker Mayfield, I think those guys are still out there in terms of
it's still to be seen what they're the long haul for them. But yeah, there've been a little bit more success. But I go back, you think of guys like, and maybe it's the dominant Heisman Trophy winners. You think of guys like Herschel Walker, who Herschel was a very solid, very good professional. He was a transitory, legendary college football player.
Yeah.
And sometimes that doesn't, I mean, I know you're moving to a higher level. Obviously, you're not going to be as great. But I really do think that there are some Heisman voters who in the back of their minds are like, well, I'm kind of undecided. And DeVonta Smith is, pretty good chance he's going to be a hell of a wide receiver. And Mac Jones may just be another 7-year backup Alabama quarterback. And I just think it's human nature for that to creep in. And you're right. It's wrong to grade him on that because we don't know. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe he does turn into an amazing pro. But I still think some of that plays into it a little bit.
On some level, I think it helps him as a pro to have a better career because you don't walk in with a Heisman Trophy.
Right.
And especially if you have a Heisman Trophy and you're a number 1 pick, those folks don't have a lot of success. And that stretches all the way back before Vinny Testaverde. It really does. And obviously the reason is because you're going to be picked by the worst team in football.
Right.
And you're not going to have a whole lot of chance for success, at least up front. And then in today's NFL and perhaps in yesterday's NFL to some degree, but less than, patience runs thin. If you don't show something in 2 years, 3 years, even if you're with the Jets or with the Bengals for crying out loud, you're labeled a bust. And there was a long stretch of that, with Eric Crouch and Tim Tebow and Troy Smith and Matt Leinart and Jason White, all those folks.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then, of course, Johnny Manziel, Jameis Winston were back to back. Jameis is still in the league, but now Derrick Henry. Henry.
Yeah,
he's a Lamar Jackson won an MVP. Okay. Yep. Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray. Baker Mayfield's in the playoffs. Kyler Murray at times this year was, you looked at it as the next great quarterback. And then, of course, Joe Burrow had a nice season as well. So, that could be changing to some degree. But
and some of that, don't you think some of that now is that these quarterbacks come into a league that runs offenses that are a little closer to what their college offenses were? And a lot of, like, the Troy Smiths of the world really didn't stand a lot of a chance because he was a more mobile, he's not a Lamar Jackson, but he was a more mobile quarterback coming out at a time when that was not what NFL offenses wanted. And I think he was wasn't he switched to wide receiver at some point? I mean, I think they even tried to move his position a bit.
Who's this again?
Troy Smith.
Oh, Troy Smith. Yeah, boy. Oh, boy. Yeah.
But now these guys are more the offenses that they're running in college, and because there are more, we talked to Derek Abbott about this a lot. There are more actually some true triple option stuff that you run in the NFL, and guys run those run pass, those RPO things. And back in the 15 years ago, that was unheard of.
It's interesting, but it's not like the colleges have met the NFL where they're at. The NFL has met the colleges where they are at. And that's, to me, the most noteworthy thing about the whole thing is that the NFL has changed their offense.
And the high schools, the colleges met the high schools.
College football.
The colleges met the high schools because they weren't getting. I mean, I read a long article on this. I think it was in the Sporting News. For years they were looking. We need somebody 6'6" with a cannon, and it's like you don't get that very often. What you're getting is, in high school, you know how this works. You're the best athlete. You want the ball in his hands the most. And so they created offenses for that. They ran things that were old offenses, wing T, single wing, all this weird stuff, veer offenses. And the colleges caught up with it and said, well, gosh, I mean, we can't turn this guy into Dan Marino. If we do, it's going to take 5. Right. It's going to take 5 years. Wow. Why don't we just run an offense that's closer to what he ran? See if we can get him 50% better at that traditional stuff. So, yeah, it's ever changing, and it'll be interesting to watch the Heisman as we go forward, because you're right. As of late, they've had a little more success.
It's turning around. It's cyclical. It's a little cyclical, I think, and because you had that run. You had Reggie Bush. You had Matt Leinart, Jason White, Carson Palmer had a nice career.
Yeah, he did.
But before that, you had Chris Weinke, Ron Dane was okay, Ricky Williams had a nice career. Charles Woodson's a Hall of Famer, but you have Danny Werfel. You had Eddie George.
Great career.
Rasham Salon, Charlie Ward, Gino Torretta, Desmond Howard, Ty Detmer, Andre Ware. But then you have Tim Brown and Barry Sanders back to back.
Great careers, yeah.
You have Doug Flutie, Bo Jackson, Vinny Testaverde, Tim Brown, and Barry Sanders all back to back. Now, Doug Flutie had a great professional career. Bo Jackson would have if he wasn't hurt. Vinny threw for over 40,000 yards, was in the league for how long?
He's 62 years, I believe.
62, I believe he was. And Tim Brown and Barry Sanders are Hall of Famers.
Vinny Testaverde has Hall of Fame numbers, but I think that's certainly a case of you have to look at it on the field. And I have nothing against Vinny Testaverde. In fact, I think we had that 98 season with Vinny and the Jets was really, really maybe the last time a Jets fan had anything to be excited about this side of the Brett Favre coming over for a year.
Yeah, and that was 2 years removed from a 1-15 season. That's how much Bill Parcells can turn around a team. And but the poor Jets. Did boy. You want to talk about that a little bit later, so we'll talk about that.
Yeah,
coaching carousel.
We want to talk about a coaching carousel because I read something yesterday that it was all I could do not to immediately start sending angry messages to you about how pissed off I was that this name's popping up. And I want you to talk me off the roof a little bit with that when we get there. But let's just segue into, I mentioned it briefly, the poor Cleveland Browns. My goodness. They have been one of the most, I think it's fair to say, affected by COVID issues throughout the season. They have had a lot of them. I think that's one of the reasons that Kevin Stefanski, who now has tested positive and will he really, really needs to get a lot of love because it could have very easily, Mark, and we would have seen this from Cleveland teams of the past. They could have folded the tent very, very easily at any number of times during this season. And they didn't. Are they a great team? No. But are they a good team and trending in the right direction in a year where that's a pretty good place to set the bar? Yeah, they absolutely are. However, COVID issues now with Kevin Stefanski. They still have some other players under COVID protocol. 2 of their players got arrested for drag racing last night. I mean, honestly.
What?
Hey, Kanicki, you think you could wait till the end of the season for the drag racing there, Kanicki?
Unbelievable. I mean, I just don't understand.
Anything they can. Maybe their feeling is this, Mark. Maybe their feeling is, in years where we didn't have all this stuff, we never made the playoffs. Maybe we need to do all this. Maybe we need to be the Oakland Raider-ish team that's got guys doing this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen to these drag racing guys, but
Baker Mayfield's the perfect quarterback for that kind of identity. So why not, right? We're kind of the bad boys of the NFL. We're kind of the bad boys of the NFL and see what happens and make a run and just, everyone's against us. And they're going to have that.
We're not buttoned up enough for Colin Cowherd. Oh my God, I wear my hat sideways. Look at me. I'm a rebel.
Yeah, I'll tell you. I love him. I do love Colin, but boy, oh boy, he's on the Mount Rushmore of white privilege boys. He really is.
He's my mother.
Oh man.
My mother, he is like poster boy for my mother. I'm 56 years old. And I told my mom, my 86-year-old mom, who's doing well, and she's great. And she's incredibly happy today. I mentioned to her that I had to go meet with the Raptors folks for a rehearsal prior to the preseason game. And my 86-year-old mother says to her 56-year-old son, who has been largely gainfully employed for the last 30 plus years, 35 years. She says, make sure you wear a nice shirt. I'm like, gee, Mom, I was going to wear assless chaps and a half shirt, but thank you. She is very, very big on that whole presentation. If you watch like the news with my mother, she will consistently comment on how people look and what they're wearing. Look at that. Look at how nice he looks, John. I like that. I don't like it when they don't look nice. Because apparently my mom, there's some sort of news channel there where people dress like Emmett Kelly when they're doing the news. And I'm for one
outstanding 70-year-old reference.
Thank you. I figured in my head when I was going over that, my wife has just made a comment. Make sure you wear a nice shirt, John. She laughs about it as well. But I ran, bring a briefcase. I ran that around in my head, the reference, and I thought, what can I reference that Mark will get and will get a giggle out of him? And it did. But yet be so arcanely old that there's absolutely no way we could market it in any marketing attempt for this show.
If we were to attempt any marketing at all,
which would
that's what we want to do. We want to do that. We want to separate ourselves, John, from the plethora of podcasts and sports podcasts. How many sports podcasts are out there, you think, right now?
1,000,006.
1,000,006. How many podcasts overall?
40 trillion billion.
I think
a gazillion.
40 trillion. Actually, there's right. There's 1,000 per every human on the planet. But there's got to be something that separates us from the pack, Johnny. Maybe it's a shorter show. Maybe it's more digestible clips. Maybe it's segments that it's where Mark was right, where Mark was wrong. We
can't do that. That's a Colin Cowherd thing.
No, I'm saying where
Mark was right.
Yes, but how about this? Kinds of things.
How about this? As opposed to any sort of sports take, we do it about life choices.
Oh God. All right.
John decided not to go. John decided not where John was wrong. John decided not to go and do summer stock. He decided instead to stay home and end up in a romantic triangle. That happened to me back in college. So maybe for that, but we can't really maybe that, Mark. Maybe we blatantly steal.
Mark decided not to pay the jaywalking ticket at UCLA. 5 years later, ran a stop sign. Charged for reckless driving on a suspended license.
Wow! So UCLA was able to suspend your license for not paying a ticket on campus.
It wasn't UCLA. It was Westwood. But I mean that's how.
But you're white, Mark. It was Westwood.
But I was crossing the street, and it was right across the street from UCLA, and never paid it because I thought, how in the hell do you really think I'm going to pay this? That was
Right,
that was
of
my
course.
level, and of
Right.
course,
Where I would go too.
Get suspended, and then I ran a stop sign, charged for reckless driving, and was thrown in jail because I had a suspended. Did reckless driving on suspended license.
So you've
And
done
the stop
time in the
sign
jail.
was only a two-way. It was roads that butted up against a golf course, and you just could run the one because you could see just one way coming in.
Yeah.
So it really
And they
wasn't
knew that.
that reckless, to tell you the truth.
And they knew that, and they needed money for the police Christmas party, and they're like,
did.
"All right,
They
let's
did.
set up right here because every white privileged golfer in Westwood's going to be running this stop sign."
And then I saw the trial of the Chicago 7, and I had forgotten how Jerry Rubin passed away. He passed away whilst jaywalking in Westwood. Got hit by a car.
Oh, okay.
So
I thought he just dropped dead the way you said it, that he was just walking across the street and just collapsed in a heap right there. But
he was jaywalking. So evidently there was a reason to police and enforce the jaywalking codes in Westwood. At any rate, that would be a fun way to do it.
That wasn't you.
All I'm saying is just a segment about where, we could come up with all kinds of things, but it's a 5-minute thing. We could post that. Those could go viral. And when I mean viral with John and I, that means 12 or 13 views. Anyway,
be great.
I think what's important though is that we discuss our marketing strategy on the air continuously.
No, I do too, because I got to be honest.
I think that's highly entertaining because we're not going to do it any other time.
No, absolutely not. You're like, hey, let's get in touch later on. I got a Zoom thing. I never heard from you. And then we were in our cups last night watching politics, so that wasn't going to be helpful. All right. Yeah. And I really didn't have any great desire to talk a lot about the NFL playoffs because we're going to talk about it on Friday. Outside of the Cleveland thing, I think the only other story that at least I'm aware of that I'm keeping a great deal of track of is the Rams quarterback situation. It makes that the most difficult game to pick because that, and going back to it, watching it yesterday, that is the number one ranked defense in the NFL. And all things being equal, a division rival number one defense, I would be predisposed to go all in on the Rams on that. But until we know about Jared Goff, and then we obviously during the game have to see which Jared Goff we get and which Rams offense.
I really don't think there's any chance at all that the Seahawks lose that game. They're at home. They're in the Cheater Dome. And they have more license to cheat now because they can just pump in as loud a noise as they want to because it's it's Wild West out there.
Where Mark was wrong. Building without a roof, not a dome.
It's the Cheater Dome, and it's one of those things that I just I refuse.
You're never going to give up on.
No, I'm never going to give up on.
It's like the magic bullet. You're never going to give up.
Like the stolen election. So
the magic bullet and the magic bullet. You're never going to get up on the magic bullet. Which is not a magic bullet.
I keep coming back to the magic bullet because I think it's the one piece that undercuts the lone gunman theory. And I agree that a lot of the evidence out there points to the lone gunman, but no one can explain a pristine bullet that went through two bodies. And
for those of you who didn't tune out with the Emmett Kelly reference, now we're knee deep into the Kennedy assassination.
How do you explain a pristine bullet going through two bodies, bone?
It wasn't completely pristine,
and
it was not.
And a jump seat.
It wasn't completely pristine. That's the bottom line of it. There was certain millimeter loss of lead off of that bullet. It's completely explainable, and I can't imagine how the show hasn't gone viral now. Now that we're discussing the Kennedy assassination again. All right. Anything else, though, with the playoff? Because those are really the only two stories that have really sort of landed because everybody else, it's just, gearing up for this weekend. We're obviously watching the COVID lists. I haven't seen anything else outside of the poor Browns. But again, this is situation normal for the Browns. And maybe this is maybe in part, Mark, because we've said this about, bad teams for an awfully long time. We said, if you get into the NFL and you've come from Alabama and wherever, and you've had a lot of Georgia or Clemson, you've had a great deal of success. And then you put on a Jets jersey, that there may very well be just some sort of psychological thing in your head that goes, wow, I'm in the NFL. This team has been bad for an awfully long time. And that's that moment something doesn't go right. It's just, it's like me trying to do algebra. I mean, I might get through factoring out a binomial expression like the first 10 seconds of it. But the minute it's confusing to me, I can't get past it. I'll never get past it to get to the next level. And I just wonder
where your metaphor breaks down is that you never had success in math.
That's a good point.
But you're right, John. And I think I do like this idea of the Browns thriving more when it's us against them, and they're the bad boys.
We're a pirate ship.
And it's Baker Mayfield's the perfect guy for that organization. They have found an identity. They did win 11 games this year. We'll see what happens with them. They're pretty. That's a pretty wild card game, if you ask me. That one's a tough one to pick. It really is. And I guess the only other news, NFL news, really is Chan Gailey, offensive coordinator for the Dolphins, resigned. So
after it was reported he'd been fired, and then that story had to be taken back. That was the big couple of days ago. It was I guess there was a false story that he'd been fired, and now he has resigned. That is a little bit surprising. Chan's got to be getting up there, though. I wonder if at a point.
Plus, we know that the offense was, the offense was the problem with the Miami Dolphins, and its personnel probably is the biggest contributor to that. Not necessarily the scheme, but Chan Gailey. It's time.
Well, to that point, I'm glad you brought that up because Chan Gailey, former head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, I saw yesterday where the San Diego Chargers, and we had talked about it with Anthony Lynn would survive, and he did not. Anthony Lynn is out of there.
Seconds after our show, he was let go.
Right. They were watching. That's it. We doomed him by saying we thought maybe he deserved another chance. I saw where the San Diego Chargers, and we've talked about this with Justin Herbert and some young talent, that is much more attractive in my mind than Detroit. Certainly the Jets. The only other, we talked about Jacksonville because you have all of the draft picks and all of the money, but there's more talent in San Diego. There is some talent in Jacksonville, clearly young talent, but that's a great job. And I saw this yesterday, Mark, and it's a guy I actually like as a guy for any number of reasons we've discussed. But apparently they asked for permission to talk to Giants offensive coordinator. You ready? Are you ready for this?
I know who it is.
Who is it, Mark?
Jason Garrett.
Oh, I couldn't even say it. I could not even say it. I like Jason Garrett. You know me with Ivy League. I love that. That's one of the things I always root for Ivy League.
That's why you love Fitzpatrick.
It is one of the reasons but when I saw that they asked to speak to Jason Garrett and listen, I think we all agree Daniel Jones and that Giant offense was a bit of a surprise for us this year.
He's a good offensive coordinator. I think he's a solid offensive coordinator. I really do.
But man, talk about I'm not going to say white privilege. Talk about
just say
it. Well, it's part of it, but it's also this just sort of, and you have railed against it for years, this sort of retread privilege that the default for any team. He's had head coaching experience. He went to the playoffs. Honestly, Brad Garrett, the actor from Everybody Loves Raymond, could have taken the Cowboys to the playoffs with healthy Cowboys teams to the playoffs with a couple of those teams.
Intimidating guy.
Yes, he is, and he looks like a really, really beefy old retired tight end. Definitely a big guy. But that one threw me a little bit. That really threw me. Not that I in any way have anything against Jason Garrett, who seems to be a genuinely good dude, and to your point, is an excellent offensive coordinator. And frankly, I'd pay him in New York to keep him there with the young quarterback with Daniel Jones. But that one just, I'm not seeing Eric Bieniemy's name mentioned often enough, and he used to play for the San Diego Chargers, for God's sake.
They had a nice little article the other day about coaching vacancies and potential replacements, and they graded each one. It was kind of an interactive thing where you could slide the coach and match it with the team and get the grade and why it's a good fit, why it's a bad fit. And the only time it's a good fit for the Lions is either, I think, Harbaugh or Robert Saleh, because they're from Michigan.
Right.
Essentially, there's no other reason to do it. The Lions organization hasn't won a playoff game since 1991.
Right.
Has been, and that was the only championship game they've ever been to.
Yeah.
And they haven't won a championship in 63 years. This is a horrible organization.
Yep.
They haven't won a playoff game since 1991. Now, granted, the Cowboys, I think, have only won 2 or 3 since 1996,
Right.
and they haven't gotten to a championship game since then either. So they should be more of a, they should be compared more to the Lions than they should be compared to, a successful all-time franchise.
I agree.
But
the
I don't know
difference is
why.
the Cowboys actually accumulated great players to be bad, and I think part of the problem with the Lions was their front office has never really done them. Going back to picking. I think they picked wide receivers in how many drills? Straight drafts, Mark. First round draft wide receivers.
38
years in a row. So they're running the all wide receiver offense and defense. They populated the field with nothing but 5.
And I mean, the reason for that, of course, was that they had a GM who had no experience as a GM, not even any experience as a M, as an ASM, no managerial experience at all, much less general manager experience. And it all comes down to the ownership.
Yeah.
The Ford family has clammed. They are the problem in the end.
We saw it in Ford v Ferrari. I think you agree. When the Deuce promised Carroll Shelby, you only report to me, and then a mere minutes later, at least according to the film, put Leo Beebe in charge of everything, and we saw what happened there. That's a metaphor for the Lions. I absolutely agree. I think Salah's going to get that job, to be frank.
Yeah,
I don't think Harbaugh is going to leave to go to the Lions.
No,
I
Harbaugh
think
to San Diego is a kind of a fun idea.
His first head coaching job was University of San Diego.
Yep, Bieniemy to Houston, I think, would work, or Jacksonville. Actually, I think Bieniemy to Houston, and let's just go ahead and put Urban Meyer, Jacksonville. What the hell?
Do you really think that'll work?
I don't know. It's tough. It's a tough call because we talked about that the other day about how there's been some coaches with some success. There's been other coaches with no success. How many highly successful college coaches have had success in the National Football League? Well, you can't say Jim Harbaugh was a highly successful because he never got close to a national championship. He turned bad schools around.
Yeah,
I think Jimmy Johnson, obviously.
He was a successful.
He was. And Jimmy Johnson was a very successful,
incredibly successful
college football coach and had a lot of success. And Pete Carroll, but that's a different situation because he had already had NFL pedigree before college.
And even when he was at USC, he always seemed like an NFL guy to me, probably because he had those 2 head coaching jobs. But I think we all looked at Pete Carroll, particularly because he looks 25 years younger than he actually is. And we all thought eventually he's going to parlay this USC success into another head coaching job in the NFL. So, yeah, you're right about that.
It's interesting about Nick Saban because I think Nick Saban was an assistant coach. He was an assistant to Bill Belichick, wasn't he? For a long time. I believe so.
Oh, yeah. No, he was on the staff. Yeah, he was on the staff in Cleveland. He was one of the guys on the staff in Cleveland, I believe.
And he just seemed so out of his element when he came to the Dolphins. Now, a lot of that was the realization that Dante Culpepper was not Drew Brees. And, oh, shit, But I'll never forget that one play where he threw out the wet red flag and he looked so timid with it. He looked like he didn't, and it just sort of isn't that weird how one thing can just define a narrative for someone's entire career?
Well, we talked about the Heisman Trophy, Mark. Everybody says it. You have to have that signature, not just game, the signature play. Yeah. So yeah, that is very, very true about Nick Saban. I don't know Nick Saban's record in the NFL. I studied, gone back and everything, but I basically remember that and think this guy was maybe the biggest NFL head coaching bust ever, and he really wasn't. But that's what we remember about it.
I mean, I think it was 2 years. It's 2 years. We've talked about this, John. 2 years is not enough time to judge anyone. Now, if you're Les Steckel, 1 year is enough time. I agree. Now, that's a 37-year-old reference.
Wow. I believe he used to room with Emmett Kelly when they were in college together, frankly. Les Steckel.
So Nick Saban, let's see what his actual record was. In the 2 years, he was 9-7 the first year, Johnny.
Right.
9-7, and then
Right.
6-10 the second year. So that's just amazing. They were 3-7 in his first season, and he won his last 6 in a row. And they missed the playoffs. And then they were 6-10 the following year, and then he was out.
Right.
He was out.
Now, he wasn't fired. He left under his own volition as well. So he wanted to go back. He wanted to go back. And I think
didn't he
hold ownership
at the Alabama job he got following that immediately?
No, I think basically he was in discussions with Alabama when he was still with the Dolphins because he was looking to exit. From what I remember, what we found out is he informed them even before the end of the season that he wished to move on. And apparently made a very good choice. But it just worries me with the Urban Meyer thing. And you know me, I'm kind of nominally a Jacksonville Jaguar fan.
Right.
Back in the day, we covered that organization. They were very good to us. Fred Taylor, one of my favorite players of all time. And they were really fun team, good, gracious. In their second year, they're in the AFC Championship game. And that Mark Brunell team.
Was it the angry Christian? Is that what you called him? What'd you call Mark Brunell? The angry Christian?
Oh, I can't remember. No, it was something else. It was the unfriendly Christian, I believe, is what we called Mark Brunell. But then I interviewed him. He was a little difficult to deal with in Jacksonville. When he was with Washington, though, I actually interviewed him and had a good time with him. So I think it was probably the Tom Coughlin thing, because of all the athletes, coaches I've ever dealt with, he's my least favorite of all time. Without a doubt, he was the least. Yeah, he was the least enjoyable guy to cover at any point in time. Tom Coughlin. So I for one, am glad I don't have to deal with him anymore. And apparently, Mark Brunell was as well.
He was, Nick Saban. Just to clarify what you had said, you're right. He was the defensive coordinator for Bill Belichick from 91 to 94 in Cleveland. He was the secondary coach in 88 and 89 for the Houston Oilers, who worked for Jerry Glanville at the time. And then, of course, he went to Michigan State, turned that program around, went straight from there to LSU, won a national championship there. 2 years with the Dolphins. And then right after that second year of the Dolphins, the very next year, he goes to Alabama.
Yeah. No, he signed that immediately. He went to Alabama immediately.
Yeah, he did. So he had the 2 years as a head coach, and 1 year was 9-7. He had 1 year under 500, and we define him, and we look at that as like, head coaches from college can't coach in the National Football League. That's why I think it's a real open question about Urban Meyer. I really do.
Yeah.
I don't think it's
Lenny, by the way,
I think it's an open question.
Lenny's thrown out some names. Rich Brooks, the former Oregon coach who had the Rams job at one point, Butch Davis. Though Butch Davis was starting to turn things around a little bit in Cleveland. I think ownership there did him in a bit. Dennis Erickson had little or no success. Lou Holtz lasted about 40 minutes as the head coach of the Jets, and then I went back to Arkansas. John McKay, though, listen, I'm sorry, people bring up John McKay. An expansion team back in the mid 1970s, 1976, Mark, stood very little chance of being any good. They did. They weighted it towards you being crappy.
They were 0-26.
Right.
0-26 at the end of the 1977 season. In 2 years from that point, they got to the NFC Championship game.
And they lost, what, 9-7? Or
9-0.
9-0. Okay. I gave
to the Rams, who gave the Steelers a great game that particular season.
Yep.
In the Super Bowl under Ray Malavasi.
Right. Ray Malavasi passed away just a couple of years ago.
R.I.P. No, I think he's been dead for quite some time.
I think Ray Malavasi has been dead less than 3 years. I know you're going to look it up, but I just want to say, I just want to defend John McKay. John McKay had some success there. And in fact, I think ownership down there was a problem as well. Also, all the racism that was pointed towards Doug Williams, who was one of the big reasons they had that success under John McKay. But John McKay did okay. But yeah, I mean, it's littered with college coaches who now every coach in the NFL has some level of college coaching experience, if not head coaching, certainly. I mean, that's part of the ladder. I just worry about the Urban Meyer thing. I worry about the fact that he's had health issues, whether you believe that or not. I do believe to some extent that he's had those. I think Shad Khan would be making a mistake. Again, I think Eric Bieniemy is the best choice for that job because you give that creative a mind to Trevor Lawrence. But you're also right, Mark. For Eric Bieniemy's sake, getting a Deshaun Watson may be better because he's obviously much further along in his NFL grooming, so to speak. And I think Bieniemy could be more creative with an offense early on. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know what the situation is in Houston as far as cap space and everything, but there's a revolt going on down there, if you believe JJ Watt, with the guys who want to win and the guys who don't. Saw a great quote from Chase Young where he said, what we have here are guys who love to play professional football, not guys who love to be professional football players. And that, I thought that was a really terrific way of putting it. And why I have high hopes for Ron Rivera and that Washington football.
I would too. I think the future is bright. And you look at a kid like Chase Young and the kind of havoc he wreaks on the football field and the kind of control he has for such a big, strong guy.
Freakish athlete.
Speed he has. It's really fun. That fumble recovery against the 49ers where, I mean, it's literally on the ground and it's sort of just staying there. It's not moving. He can't run and pick it up in momentum. No, he has to actually bend down, pick it up, and then run away from the pack and run to the sideline and run for the touchdown. It was just unbelievable. It's one of those big signature plays.
And how many of those defensive players have we seen throughout the years trying to pick up a fumble and failing to do it, and then the offense falling on the ball, taking that chance, which is why most of those guys are coached not to try to just fall on the damn thing and let the offense take over. I'd love to see Chase Young in a goal line packages for Washington as a tight end or a fullback. They were in the red zone, I think, on the inside the 5, and discussing that a lot of teams struggle there. They have struggles there, and I'm like, put Chase Young and give him the football. He'll do everything he can to get in the end zone. But I just thought that was great. We have guys who love to play professional football versus guys who love to be professional football players, and that's big change.
So how many years ago did Ray Malavasi die in your mind?
I thought it was within 3.
33.
He died 33 years ago?
He did.
He's been
dead for a long time. Yes, sir.
No, he did not die in 1987, right?
That's
80. No.
Yeah, 87. He did.
No.
He did.
Absolutely not.
Okay, well, again,
I do not believe that.
I know.
I believe you.
Normally you agree. You believe in facts, John. Normally you believe in facts, and occasionally you don't. This is an example of you not believing in a fact. He's been dead a long, long time. Yeah.
All right, Ray Malavasi. I'm going to check this out now. He died in
1987.
Well, this is wrong. This is clearly wrong. It's clearly all wrong. I honestly thought that he
recently passed away. Yeah,
he had just recently passed away.
He was 57 33 years ago. So if he'd been 87, and take one look at Ray Malavasi, he was not going to make it to 87.
Wow, Ray Malavasi only got one. I'm 56. This one you outlived Ray Malavasi, Mark.
I did. I feel all right about that.
It's kind of where we set the bar.
Never coached a team to the Super Bowl, but other than that,
No. All right. One thing that we want to talk about, we talk about guys who loved playing professional football, is the 15 finalists for the Hall of Fame were announced. And I just want to get your idea. As I look down, there's a lot of guys here who are Calvin Johnson, one of the 38 wide receivers that the Lions, sadly, he had to play his entire career in Detroit, so most people don't remember how good he was. I can see take a look at the list, Mark. Are you looking at the list?
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Let's start checking people off that we don't think are going to get in. These are I have them alphabetically, so I'm gonna tell. We'll let everybody know. Jared Allen, Rondé Barber, Tony Boselli, Leroy Butler, Alan Faneca, Torrey Holt, Calvin Johnson, John Lynch, Peyton Manning, Clay Matthews, Sam Mills, Richard Seymour, Zach Thomas, Reggie Wayne, and Charles Woodson. Maybe it'd be easier at first, Mark. Who are the slam dunks in your mind?
Charles Woodson's a slam dunk.
Mm-hmm.
Reggie Wayne, not a slam dunk, but will get in.
Okay.
I think, he's one of those wide receivers. Even Terrell Owens didn't get in the first ballot, which is ridiculous. But wide receivers.
Let's just cover this year. You don't think Wayne will get in this year, though, right?
I do not.
Okay. So who do you think this year? Let's do just to shorten this bit just a bit. But I agree with you on Reggie Wayne. I think he
Peyton
will.
Manning, obviously.
Really?
Yes. Peyton Manning is going to get in this year. Yes.
Make an argument for that because I don't see it.
He holds many of the records of quarterback.
Compiler, though, don't you think?
Super Bowls with two different teams.
Compiler, though, don't you think?
A bit of a compiler, yes. But I think his postseason record is still under 500. But he won 2 Super Bowls with 2 separate teams.
Shouldn't he have to wait it out a couple of years?
He has multiple MVPs as well. No, I think he's a slam dunk. Okay. Calvin Johnson, I think probably. I mean, Calvin Johnson was unbelievable. He may get in. I think Alan Faneca could get in this year. I think Tony Baselli could get in. Well, I didn't realize he had such a short career.
Baselli, yeah. He's been out of the league for 19 seasons, though. Tony, he was
unbelievable.
He was unbelievable. I don't think Jared Allen gets in right away. I think Rondé Barber is an interesting one.
I don't think he's near a Hall of Famer, to tell you the truth.
I think he gets in.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I was thinking Tiki. No. You're right. Rondé has a shot. Tiki is the overrated one. Rondé has a shot. I love Rondé Barber. Tiki Barber is just overrated as hell. The second he left the Giants is when they won. He was the Don Mattingly of the New York Giants.
Interaction. Yeah, I do. Or the Peyton Manning.
Torrey Holton.
Because of Tennessee, he held them back, clearly.
Does John Lynch get in?
I don't think he does. I don't think he does at this point. I don't think he does. For this year, I'm looking at, to your point, I think Woodson and Manning, which that's going to be a lot of fun. Boy, talk about guys whose careers are
seriously matched each other. I mean, that is a lot of fun.
Because Paul Feinbaum still says he gave up on the Heisman Trophy when Peyton Manning didn't win over Charles Woodson, though I still think you can make an argument for Woodson in that. I think that comes closer to what the Heisman is supposed to be than what it actually ends up being. But I see Woodson, I see Manning, I see. I think you might be right about Alan Faneca, even though as a guard people don't think a lot about that. But I mean, he's a perennial Pro Bowler, Alan Faneca. I think Barber's going to get in. And I believe Clay Matthews will get in. And the rest of them, I think, might have to wait. I think Clay Matthews is definitely going to get in. And I'll tell you this, too. I'll tell you this about Clay Matthews. I think one of the reasons that he may get in this year, and again, these are not, when I say stuff like this, like my Heisman Trophy thing about the Alabama quarterback, this doesn't mean that I think this is in front of people's minds or this is decision-making, but I do think these things creep in. I think because of the kind of year Cleveland had, I think it helps him. Because he is well known as a Cleveland Brown.
So if John Lynch, if the vote was last year and they had just been they were, they had a 13-3 season, they had turned their season around, and he was front of mind as a GM as well, would he have had a better shot of getting in the first ballot last year, John Lynch, than this year?
Might have.
Because he's more front of mind. Although he's
do you agree with me though that it puts you in front of mind? I think a little bit.
Yes, it does. Now, is there a minimum? Is there a minimum amount of players they have to pick? See, I don't exactly, and I know there are some people that really understand the Hall of Fame, like Keith Abbott would know exactly how many they pick. But I mean, if they don't have any, or are they obliged to pick 5?
I think, it always seems like there are 5, sometimes maybe 6. There's always as well someone from the Veterans Committee, and we're not getting that with all of these. But it always seems like there's at least 4 or 5. Guys, I don't know. Lenny thinks Manning, Calvin Johnson, and Woodson. I go kind of both ways on Calvin Johnson, simply because, again, it's that toiling in Detroit that I think sometimes guys like that. Sam Mills is not a bad call either. He was beloved, Sam Mills, and sadly passed away far too young. But that's where Calvin Johnson, I think, may run into that because you had to toil in obscurity. We're gonna make you wait a little bit longer. And again, Mark never had an opportunity on the biggest stages in the NFL.
And Clay Matthews did. Clay Matthews was there for the big 80 86 and 87 collapses
Mm-hmm.
of the Cleveland Browns, as well as 1889. They lost 3 championship games to the Jets in a span of 4 years. And but outside of that, he was, and he was also part of the Cardiac Kids in 1980 with Sam Ritigliano.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he was. I think he probably has a little bit better chance than Calvin Johnson. Although I think Calvin Johnson is the best wide receiver of the bunch, and I think Reggie Wayne's going to make it. I don't think Torrey Holt will make it, but I do.
I'd take Torrey Holt over Reggie Wayne.
Really?
I would take Torrey Holt over Reggie Wayne to make it. I'm not saying I think he's better than Reggie Wayne, but I would take Torrey Holt over Reggie Wayne. I think Torrey Holt might make it this year.
Wow. Now, okay. I just think
you hate the Rams.
No, not at all. I mean, I do hate the Rams, but and he was sort of the second to Isaac Bruce, and Reggie Wayne was the second to Marvin Harrison.
Right.
But interesting. I don't know. That's interesting. I think that Calvin Johnson is the most spectacular and had the most spectacular career, actually, of the 3 that we're looking at wide receivers wise. And I do think he has the best chance to do it. But you have to be Randy Moss, seemingly, to get in on the first ballot. If you're, if Terrell Owens, Calvin Johnson, I don't think had a better career than Terrell Owens, had more spectacular career at times, but did not have a better career than Terrell Owens, and neither did Torrey Holt or Reggie Wayne. And Terrell, now granted, part of that is because,
but Calvin
didn't get along with the
Calvin Johnson
trying to punish him, this kindergarten criteria.
But Calvin Johnson, though, the thing is, Mark,
go ahead.
Terrell Owens was a much more front of mind guy when he was in the NFL than Calvin Johnson ever was for the vast majority of people, and part of it was because Owens actually played on some good football teams, and Calvin Johnson infrequently played on even a team that wasn't bad, frankly. I think Calvin Johnson is going to have to wait. I think with all the wide receivers, to your point, because the numbers have been so inflated for wide receivers and quarterbacks over the last 15 or 20 years, as we have changed the rules to make it a more offensive game. I think that's part of because you get a lot of old school guys voting, Mark. And I think they look back and they go, well, goodness gracious, Mike Siani had big numbers. He had the same, was as good, but he didn't have the numbers because blah, blah, blah. And I know Mike Siani's not a Hall of Famer, just pulling out another aged reference. So I think that's part of what happens with the wide receivers, to be frank, is that they lose a little bit of luster because the numbers are inflated to some people's minds.
No, I agree with that. I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I also, you have to consider that Calvin Johnson isn't going to be amongst the career receiving touchdown leaders because he played for the Lions.
Right.
And you need to score touchdowns to win games, and they don't win games. They don't score touchdowns. Where, Isaac Bruce, and I'm looking at receiving yards right now. Isaac Bruce is number 4, and Calvin Johnson is 32. I don't even see Torrey Holt is 16. So he's actually ahead of Calvin Johnson a little bit. Reggie Wayne is 10th.
Yeah.
Reggie Wayne has actually, better statistics, but he's playing for a team. He played with Peyton Manning, for crying out loud. Now,
let me ask you that. It's interesting because when he's voting for these things, they're always so nebulous and who gets to vote and whatnot. Does it make it more difficult for Reggie Wayne because somebody goes, do we really want to put Peyton and Reggie in the same year and make it seem like, Colts? I don't know. I don't know what creeps into their thinking there. In theory, each of these guys has someone who is a voter who argues for them, and it's supposed to be objective. You and I both know that literally nothing on earth is ever objective for anyone. There's subjectivity to everything. So I don't know if Reggie, maybe because Peyton obviously is going to go in, does somebody go, yeah, we'll make Reggie wait. We don't want to be, we don't want it to look like, we're going to just glory on those Colts teams.
I do think he gets in, and I do think it's pretty much a slam dunk. He does not get in this year. I think the one receiver that has a chance to get in this year is Calvin Johnson. You look at actually touchdowns. I told you that Reggie Wayne was 10th in yards. Calvin Johnson was 32 in the yards. Calvin Johnson's 23rd in touchdowns. That's 83. Reggie Wayne has 82 touchdowns. And Torrey Holt has 74. Now, granted, there were a lot of receivers to throw to in that Rams offense, but he played for a Hall of Fame quarterback as well.
Yeah.
He played for Kurt Warner. Calvin Johnson did not play for a Hall of Fame quarterback.
They didn't actually play for them. I just want to point that out.
Well, no, it's all about for the quarterback. No, you're right. There was a wrong preposition, John. And, I was trusting you like I always do to call me when I incorrectly use my prepositions.
I usually play for him. I mean, it's like, I guess Peyton Manning felt that way since he essentially ran that offense because he wasn't actually playing for him.
Dan Marino felt that way, clearly.
Yeah, playing for me.
You're playing for me. You're playing for me. So Calvin Johnson, 83 touchdowns with the Detroit Lions. I don't know. That's pretty impressive.
By the way, Lenny jumping in with between 4 and 8 new members, including the veteran. So the minimum is 4.
Yeah, and I mentioned that Wayne was the number 2 to Harrison and Holt was the number 2 to Isaac Bruce, and so they would have less. Right. They would have less receptions, although, Wayne played for one of the top 5 quarterbacks of all time. I think you would you put him in the top 5, John, Peyton Manning? Top 5. It could be 5. I would literally say 5, maybe 6.
All right. Let's do this. Montana and Brady. Those are the top 2. Those are going to remain my top 2.
Great.
Elway.
Okay.
I got to go with Elway, even though I was never really a fan.
Unitas.
Man, Greg Landry was good. He may be 5th at best, though he may not be as good as Sammy Baugh. He might not be as good as Sid Luckman, Otto Graham. So hard when you start to move to those guys. You mean Otto Graham? If you just look at where people talk championships, I mean Otto Graham, 12, 13 years, and 11 of them he was in championship games and won 6 or 7 of the damn things.
He went to 10 straight. Straight. Just remarkable.
I'm sorry. You can't. There's no way you can do that.
Played for a man that reinvented, the game. So there's that too.
And came over from another league, and in the first year in the NFL, won a championship, I believe.
Yeah,
or at least played for it.
No, they did. They won. They won the first year, which is
phenomenal. Okay. So no. Peyton Manning is 6th at best, and I'd put him 33rd. Because again, I mean, you got to look at Jeff Garcia. You have to look at Mark Rippon. You have to look at just running down these Jim Druckenmiller. I mean, they're just guys who dominated, and I think we're
sure. All right, so receptions, it's Reggie
Wayne. Mark T. Martin. Martin could take Tennessee to a championship.
Exactly.
Peyton Manning couldn't do that.
No. So he's better than Peyton Manning. He's better than Peyton Manning. It's interesting. We'll see. I think Calvin Johnson is the best chance. I don't know about Clay Matthews. I think Alan Faneca, all those guys, I think are worthy. Richard Seymour had an amazing career, short, however.
Boselli too.
Yeah, I agree. It's fun. It's a fun class this year. It really is.
Nate Sudfeld, Lenny wants to remind, still has to be taken into consideration along with Peyton Manning. I mean, sure, the resume is shorter for Nate Sudfeld, but I think never be.
You got to consider it. You got to consider it. So you think Peyton Manning is 5th unless you factor in Otto Graham.
And I think you have to. So, 6th at best.
All right, fair enough.
If you had to win one football game, football game for a championship,
that's not the
Peyton
criteria.
Manning would not be the person in his family you would choose.
That's true. That's very true. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt about that. Even Peyton fans and Eli haters would have to say that.
Personally, what I would like to see is the aforementioned Tiki Barber, who you don't care for.
I don't.
When Peyton Manning receives the award, the Tiki Barber come on stage, take it, and say, you know what? Peyton had a great year, but Eli Manning is the best Manning, and give the award to Eli Manning, sort of like Kanye. That's that for me. That for me would be
Tiki Barber to Kanye West. I think that works.
I thought you'd enjoy that.
Have you ever seen the two of them in the same place?
No, I haven't. Frankly,
no.
And I travel in wide-ranging circles.
Well, you went to the Super Bowl party, for crying out loud.
When Tiki Barber was in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, you've traveled. You have the credibility to let us know after all these years that number one, the Magic Bullet was not as pristine as we think it was. Yawn.
Can't you just see it? Can't you just see Peyton up there? I like to thank my brother Leo, who never had this opportunity. And then Tiki Barber comes up and just grab, oh, what's happening? And then Tiki Barber, oh yeah, you had a fine career, but Eli Manning is the best quarterback in the Manning family. You're maybe third. You would not have won games with the New Orleans teams. Your dad quarterback. I don't know what's happening. You murdered my Buick.
The fact that he does those commercials, though, it belies what you're,
I know.
This idea of this just total hick.
I know. And I've turned on Peyton Manning. I couldn't stand him at Tennessee, obviously, for all the reasons.
You hated him for years. There's a famous clip from the ESPN Club about he's a loser,
like his old man. I said he's a loser, just like his old man, and people got upset.
There's a guest like yelling back at you, and you're just yelling, "Doesn't matter, doesn't matter, doesn't matter." You're just shouting the guest down.
Yeah,
you were using your comic bully skills, and they are
extensive.
Yeah, they are noteworthy. That's a noteworthy set of comic bullying skills. So good for you. Not doesn't
not
matter.
The point. Not the point.
Not the point. Not the point. Not the point.
Yeah, that was one of those times where I said
a loser
that.
Like his father. That was so
Peyton Manning's a loser like his old man. And some guest complained to our manager, Keith Abbott, who, to his point, was like, it's his opinion. He's making his opinion. And I just to love that. He was the guy that, I could go against that everybody else loved. It was kind of my Cal Ripken thing where everybody loves Cal Ripken. And I'm like, make you pay $1,000 for an autograph, probably, which isn't necessarily true about Cal Ripken. But Peyton Manning was that guy. And I don't know why, because he never beat Florida. Eli Manning beat them twice. Once again, pointing out to Peyton, at the family reunion, Peyton Manning is not the best quarterback, or at least not the one I want in a championship game.
Right. No, you're a famous iconoclast. You like to run against the grain. You like to say Peyton Manning's a loser, just like his old man. You like to say, you like to go into a gathering of middle of the road to slightly right people and say Ronald Reagan was the worst president we've ever had.
We're still paying the price.
We're still paying the price. And then who's the other one that you just throw under the bus?
I don't know. Derek's saying that he couldn't believe his dad ever agreed with anyone. I think his dad. I think Keith was just as bothered by Peyton Manning as I was. Frankly, I think that part of it.
I mean, think of the personalities of the ESPN Club with Ferrerland arguing style, Keith Abbott, who never admits he's wrong, John Pelkey, who's an iconoclast and just wants to undercut anyone for the sake of undercut, just enjoying it for the entertainment. And then you have Riley Claremont, who really wants to do the right thing.
Who's that?
Romney.
I don't. Joe Candelora was the other sports host, right? It was Joe Candelora,
who's a famous arguer in and of itself. So
anyway,
no one cares about this except
nobody does care about that. All right, so before we get out of here, and this is one of our more timely shows, an hour and 3 minutes in. Anything else that you can think of outside of this? We covered the Heisman Trophy. Which I like the choice that they made this year. I mean, I think all of those guys remarkable, and despite the fact that Trevor Lawrence will be the greatest bust in the history of the NFL,
sure, in the history,
Urban Meyer,
more than Ryan Leaf.
Good, yeah, his career much shorter. He may not make the team. That's my concern, is that he's drafted overall number 1 and they have to cut him because they just need more room for someone else on the roster. Now, all those guys were very deserving, but I do think they made the right choice in that respect. We hold our breath for the next Cleveland Browns bit of information, whatever it may be.
I don't know, Johnny. I don't know. I think you make a pretty decent point about maybe they're the Oakland Raiders of this era, and ironically, one of the Oakland Raiders' biggest rivals were the Pittsburgh Steelers. That was a major rivalry where they No, but I think they would beat them in the off. When the Steelers didn't get to the Super Bowl, it was because of the Raiders.
Right, 76.
76, and I believe possibly 73 as well, if I'm not mistaken. 72, they beat them, obviously, in the famous Immaculate Reception.
Right.
So it was sort of a back and forth thing, and it would be very interesting. Now, you sent me a menu early on today.
Yeah.
And you listed all the topics that you wanted to talk about. The one right before close that we haven't gotten to. So why don't you take it away?
We'd like to congratulate socialism for winning. Take a moment. Georgia. I'm going to be listening to nothing but just songs.
Ray Charles. Yeah.
Oh, Atlanta by Little Feat, Georgia on my mind. There's going to be a lot of Georgia music happening today. Maybe Allman Brothers live at the Fillmore East.
Allman Brothers all day long, no doubt about it. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Anything else? Anything else that you can think of? We haven't dived in too much to college basketball yet. They are navigating COVID for them has been pretty difficult. Though there's some fun stuff out there. Some of the blue bloods not looking as good. Early in the season, it's going to be really interesting for me to see what comes of college basketball because of the lack of amount of time that these guys have been able to play together. I've gotten to spend some time on the court with the NBA, working for the Raptors.
And the Raptors not playing well at all.
Now they're struggling a little bit. They're going through in the games. The home games that I've seen, they've gone through just scoring slumps. They've looked good, but they've gone through some scoring slumps. They're having a whole lot of trouble at the rim at this point in time. They brought in Aaron Baines, and he's had some struggles. But I think most people feel they're going to turn it around. Nick Nurse is a great coach. The Knicks are kind of a fun story up there. Everybody expected them to be horrible. I saw them the other day. JJ Redick can still shoot off the bench, can shoot the lights out. They've got some young talent. I saw the Celtics a couple of nights ago.
Magic playing well.
The Magic were the last undefeated team in the NBA, the Orlando Magic. So we'll get more into that as things go on. Anything else in the world of sports? I wanted to make sure we covered the Hall of Fame, the Heisman Trophy, some stuff with the playoffs, these coaching changes again. When I saw Jason Garrett's name come up for San Diego, I just thought, and I have kind of a little bit of a soft spot for the Chargers. I loved them back in the day with Dan Fouts. Yeah. And again, it's nothing against. I don't want Jason Garrett to think I have anything against him and his family, who he is as a person. I think he's an excellent offensive coordinator. But if you are the San Diego Chargers, boy, talk about, Mark, pouring cold water on a fan base that probably pretty fired up with what they have in Justin Herbert and looking for the right coach, a retread coach whose teams I don't think anyone would argue underachieved. They underperformed.
They did. Year in and year out. Year in and year out. And including last year when they were 8-8, expected to be 12-4, whatever it was. And Jason, I don't get that. But again, San Diego's ownership hasn't proven very smart either over the years. So we'll see. We'll see about that. I think Harbaugh probably the best fit there. I think Bieniemy maybe in Houston, and Urban Meyer in Jacksonville.
Who gets the Jets job is the question. Robert Saleh in Detroit. We both think Saleh's probably the odds-on favorite in Detroit. Jim Caldwell's getting a lot of love as well because I think people are looking back to what Jim Caldwell did and said, this guy probably deserves some consideration. Good Lord, though. Jim Caldwell's been around. He's been a head coach. Does he want the Jets job? Would be the question.
I think a Caldwell or an Anthony Lynn even. I think someone like that goes to the Jets. Someone who is recently fired, someone who there's nothing to prove.
I think he's got to be somebody too Caldwell might be good. He's somebody who's very steady. They need a steadying influence there. I think that's what, it's a team that never really seemed to have an identity. I don't understand the Adam Gase thing, but we've all, we've seen that before. We thought that about Pete Carroll when he got his second head coaching job. We're like, well, Pete Carroll, what the hell? And that's why people will say, well, Jason Garrett, what about Bill Belichick? What about all of these things? I'd have less problem if the Jets were looking, frankly, at a Jason Garrett. Maybe a bad team that needs to get better. he works for to me, but I don't think you want Jason Garrett on a team that looks like it could turn around quickly, because to me, that's the legacy of him in Dallas. And Derek Abbott agreeing with Anthony Lynn. Yeah, I think he got a little bit of a raw deal. I didn't think they would shuttle him out.
I think he goes to the Jets. Let's try that one. Why not?
They just the last head coach they picked, though, was a head coach who got fired at another thing. You just wonder if they go that way.
No, I know. I agree.
I think that might come into play.
No, it might.
Looks a little too much like the Gase thing.
Yeah,
to me.
Yeah. Maybe Lynn goes to, maybe Robert Saleh goes to the Jets. He goes to the Jets. He's a defensive guy. They're going to go to Adam Gase was an offensive guy. Now didn't they have who was it? Was it Todd Frazier before that? No, I forget who it was before that. Bowles.
Todd Bowles, yeah.
Bowles. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't know. I think Anthony Lynn should get a job, and but I don't know if anyone wants the Jets job. I mean, or even the Lions job. It's just ridiculous. Some of these franchises, there needs to be relegation, is what has to happen here.
But to do that, here's the problem with relegation, Mark. If you look at relegation in the EPL, and I agree, it's one of my favorite things about English Premier League soccer. I love the relegation thing. You have to have teams that you can bump up, and if really you could only relegate one team, because Alabama is the only NFL team that would still go 0-16, but would probably maybe be in a couple of games. You can't really elevate anymore. We're going to have a minor league in football, because they're never going to be less than 32 teams. So now we need to create a minor league in football, Mark, and I think you need to get on that.
Fair enough. I'll get on that right away with Lee Corso, who has experience with the Orlando Renegades. It's another an alternate league that is also a minor league.
Yeah,
it's one. So the NFL has control of it, but it is actually an alternative league. What was the one that collapsed recently, where Spurrier was the head coach of the Orlando?
That was
team? What was that?
XFL
American.
That was American something. Yeah.
And that had a lot of potential, and then just was underfunded and collapsed on its.
Well, argument is that the XFL, which I'd watched a couple of games, it actually looked like it could be, if nothing else, an acceptable minor league, at least for a bit, for the NFL. Then they fell under the COVID stuff. Derek Abbott also pointing out Joe Brady is interviewed with Atlanta and Houston. Joe Brady, an excellent assistant coach who's getting a lot of love, and we should have brought his name up. I'd forgotten about the Atlanta job. That's a very, very interesting one with the veteran quarterback. We wonder what's going to happen with Matty Ice, but that's an interesting job as well. I'm completely invested, Mark, in the San Diego job and in the Jacksonville job. Those are the two that, if I were being considered, and by the way, just to throw this out to GMs and owners, I work within budget. So I just want to throw that out there. Those would be the jobs that I would.
The Jets have the Jets have the number 2 pick. Did they survive? They got the number 2 pick, right?
They do.
So who's going to go number 2? Does Zach Wilson go number 2? Does Kyle Trask?
No, it's not. It won't be Kyle Trask. I don't think it'll be Justin Fields either.
It'll be a quarterback. I think so. I think what the Jets need is to reboot and just get a much younger staff in there. So with the brand new quarterback, they need to get the up and coming quarterbacks coach.
But there's still thought that Darnold,
who is now the
has
assistant,
suffered because of the coaching.
Well, I think he needs a good quarterback coach then. And so what they'd have to do is they have to go to the Coast Guard Academy and see the assistant coach there working for the offensive line and bring him in as a quarterbacks coach.
Derek could turn around Sam Darnold. That'd be something.
Derek, yeah, he's approaching his his late 20s, I believe, and that's when you make the move to be in a position coach in the NFL, so that within 10 years, 12 years, by the time he's 40, he's coaching the Jets to their first Super Bowl in that, at that point, 78 years.
That's perfect. I like it. All right,
quarterback coach for the New York Jets, Derek Abbott. I'm gonna be working on that as well as the minor league. Those are my tasks for the day.
Derek is ready to sign with the Jets. So let Woody Johnson, who's flying back from his ambassadorship, and will apparently be involved in the search. I don't know if having owners involved in the search is good or not in the NFL, Mark. I honestly don't. And if you look at Woody Johnson's record as owner of the Jets, maybe they can hope for a delayed flight there if you're the brain trust of the Jets, if there is even one there at this point in time. All right, lots of fun stuff on Friday. We'll have we'll have to make picks on these playoff games. I know we did preliminarily do that. I guess we'll take a look at what happens between now and then, how many Cleveland Browns are either out for COVID reasons, that they've been arrested for drag racing, perhaps embezzlement. There might be a few guys over there who just retire prior to the game just because, I mean, it's Cleveland. And to our point, Mark, this may be what they need. Cleveland may need to operate like the kitchen in a restaurant, which Anthony Bourdain always said, it's a pirate ship of people working together. Half of them want to knife the other guy in the kitchen. There are fist fights. These people are a mess and unbuttoned up. Maybe that's what they need to be. They have the perfect quarterback for it, to your point. And I think if your team's not involved, how can you not pull for the Cleveland Browns to have some success? And I know Pittsburgh fans will go, wow, okay, whatever. That's the whole point. But the Cleveland Browns are America's team, Mark. That's America's team right now. America's a mess. Yeah. It's things are just falling apart for another 14 days or so. And the Cleveland Browns they're America's team. I'm from now on, I will refer to them as America's team.
At least for the next 2 weeks. At least for the next 2 weeks.
At least for the next 2 weeks.
So I think we'll invite Derek. We'll invite Derek on for Friday's show. Is there a couple of games you want him to highlight?
Yes. Yes, all the playoff games.
That would be great. Everyone he has to break down. It's only 6 of them. That should work. All right. Sounds good.
All right. Fair enough.
6 games, Derek. All six weekend games, Derek.
Derek is
for
convinced.
Friday's show. Thank you very much.
Derek is convinced that whoever plays the Steelers they're licking floors of bathrooms the week before because the Steelers seem to play teams that can barely field a team. Lenny had mentioned earlier, and I wasn't able to find any of this, Mark, but apparently there's some rumors out there, or at least some discussion, that the NFL may find themselves in a position with COVID. And again, that's one of the main things that we watch day in and day out, that they may have to reschedule one of these playoff games. So, boy, they have been very agile. Again, finally, we've said it week in and week out. They have done an excellent job being very agile, and I think they will continue because they played every one of their games, Mark. And I thought that in the final week that there might have been games that weren't needed for playoff seeding or so, that might not have gotten played. I thought we might see that, and we did. And
just to add this, the news came down recently that the entire NCAA tournament will be held in the state of Indiana.
Yep.
To try and control the COVID spread. So I think that's pretty fun. That's a good call.
It is. College basketball, like I said, they've been struggling. If you're not paying attention, boy, there's been a lot of cancellations there. That is a really, really difficult to navigate those college sports, Mark. If we saw it with college football, are we going to have teams that make March Madness when they start picking teams that played 10 fewer games than other teams?
Yeah.
That's going to get to be a lot of fun. If they need a PA announcer in Indianapolis, I might be available by then, depending on what happens. All right, for Mark Ferreira, I'm John Pelkey. Jeff Taylor, in theory, will be back on Friday. Derek Abbott, hopefully, will be joining us. We will talk about the playoffs. We'll give you our locks and shocks, which should probably be about as I think we're at about a 40% clip on our locks and shocks, Mark. I don't expect it to be any different as we move forward into the playoffs. Have a great couple of days, everybody. I'm going to go hunker down in front of the television with a single malt. Enjoy. Bye-bye, everybody.
Right. Bye-bye. Oh, I didn't.